Did you guys see that subscribe button and notification bell right next to it? Click on that to subscribe to my channel and get notified, because today we're going to discuss why being a stylish dresser makes your life easier. So let's start revving that engine. Tell me if you agree with me here. I recently did a poll among men 25 to 50 years of age regarding what keeps them from dressing up. Responses were overwhelmingly comfort and style. However, many of them stated feeling better about themselves and performing better when they did dress up. That's why in this video, first, we're going to be discussing why it's important to up your game in style. Then, we're going to move on to why you don't have to lose the comfort when dressing up. And then, we're going to conclude with why it's not as expensive as you might think. At the end of the video, I'll even share with you where I got one of my favorite suits, and maybe even the price. There is overwhelming scientific evidence to show that when one dresses up, life gets easier for them, and it opens doors. Bear with me here when I make my first point, because in order to continue this conversation, I have to go back a few decades to find some game-changing data. In 1975, John Malloy released his landmark book entitled Dress for Success. It revolutionized the fashion industry by showing scientifically that indeed, the better one dresses, the better they're not only received by others, but also how it opened doors for them. Quite literally. Malloy is the self-acclaimed first ever wardrobe engineer. I'll admit that he falls into the stereotype of a fashion pompous ass. But the data is undeniable. He makes the argument that people dress for one of three reasons. First, to protect against elements of the environment. Second, to obey whatever their laws of modesty may happen to be. And third, to look good around people and the general world. In other words, to look authoritative, powerful, rich, responsible, reliable, friendly. To look basically like a badass. If you're a teacher, you may want to pay particular attention here, because this is where Malloy's research began. He went to an inner city school in Connecticut and chose the effects of clothing on learning in the classroom. He observed teachers that dressed in casual clothing versus those dressed more professional. He concluded that when teachers dressed in a more professional manner, the students worked longer and harder for the teacher. It could be argued that maybe the teacher in conservative clothing takes their job more serious. Probably, but when asked the casually dressed teachers to change their wardrobe, the student scores also increased. In another study, Malloy did some research with raincoats. He went to different metropolitan cities throughout the United States and observed that people in the lower socioeconomic status wore black raincoats, while those in the higher economic status wore beige. He got over 1,000 subject volunteers to guess the level of prestige according to the picture they were seeing. The only variable was the difference in raincoat color. 87% of those asked identified the person with a beige raincoat as being more prestigious. To follow on that study, he did a field test. He asked subjects to go into offices picked at random and asked the receptionist to deliver a manila envelope to the person in charge. When wearing a black raincoat, it took the subjects a day and a half to deliver 25 manila envelopes. But when wearing beige, they were able to deliver them within only a half a day. He did further statistically significant research, but you get the idea. Dressing up will overall increase the way you're perceived and treated by strangers. They'll just be more willing to help you. My second point goes against conventional wisdom and may piss off the fashion industry. With new advancements in fabrics, let's debunk that comfort myth. Take cotton, for instance. When manufactured, cotton can be either knitted, as in for t-shirts, or woven, as in for dress shirts. I had to go way back in my closet to find this bad boy because I just don't wear woven dress shirts anymore. The difference is obvious, the comfort. With advancement in garments, however, that's so 20th century. First, fabric has come a long way, and much of them not only stretch as much as cotton, but they're elastic as well, meaning that they retain their shape after stretching, thereby maintaining that nice, tight feeling better than cotton. Second, you'd think they'd be more expensive, but to the contrary, synthetic fabric costs less than cotton, linen, and certainly silk, so price is not a problem. Last, they don't need to be ironed. They don't need to be ironed. I hate ironing. Here's the story. The year was circa 2016. Times were different then. I mean, you had the opioid crisis going. There was huge tension between law enforcement and the African American community after the shooting of 2 unarmed black men. The country had an upcoming presidential election and was highly divided. And we were terrified to hear about this new Zika virus that was spreading around. Could things get any worse? But I digress. I went shopping to an express store and a young sales guy asked if I had heard of their new performance fabric shirts. After putting them on, what can I say? I was hooked. Today, the majority of dress shirts I buy fall under the umbrella term performance fabric. It's no longer those Under Armour shirts from 20 years ago. They've really developed. I'll therefore challenge you to go to any store like Express and try to wear a dress shirt that's not cotton. Put it on and see how you feel. No ironing. How about my third point, the expense? At work, I'm often in a suit and find myself in lower income neighborhoods. It's there where I usually get stopped by people, usually tough looking gentlemen, coming to me and saying, "Nice suit." My response? "Thanks. I'll have to thank my tailor." There's a saying that a well-tailored suit is to women as lingerie is to men. It is the single most important garment a man can wear. Like it or not, it states status. It is our power garment. I think one of the reasons why it's such a powerful status symbol is because in order to wear a suit, there is quite a bit of attention to detail that a person must have. Everything must be proportioned correctly, from the shoulders to the sleeves to the waistline, all the way down to the pocket square and buttons. I regularly get asked if I can tell the difference between a $150 suit versus a $1,000 suit. My answer? Only if I'm wearing it. The reality is that unless I study the suit, I only look at the drape and fit of the jacket before I ever look at the buttons and stitching. I leave that for the snobs. My favorite suit? Bought recently at Kohl's. No need for tailoring. So what do I mean when I say I look at the drape of the suit? Generally speaking, it is how it falls on you. It's a reflection on both the cut and the fabric. Here's an example of a poorly draped suit. See how it does not flow with his body? It's just not as easy to spot a cheap suit as it used to be. Guess who also couldn't tell that I was wearing an inexpensive suit? Remember that picture I showed you earlier? It's none other than 2006 Oscar nominee Terrence Howard, who I ran into at a dinner meeting. He complimented my suit from Kohl's. So here's a second unpopular fashion statement that goes against conventional wisdom. You want a good suit? No need to break the bank. Just get a good tailor that knows what they're doing and go from there. I wrote this episode with the hopes that if anything, it makes you think slightly more about the way you dress. I understand that it's a challenge to change, but when you up your style, consider the way others react to you. I'm certain you're going to enjoy the response. Dressing up does not have to be uncomfortable, nor expensive. Oh, and by the way, I know how to pronounce cohols. Coals. So please, comment on what happens when you are more dressed up. And if you like what you heard, hey, why not give me a like? Better yet, subscribe to my channel, and right next to the subscribe button, there's a notification bell. It'll let you know when I post a new video. It's only once a week, so it's not like it's gonna be a bug. Thank you very much. In this video, we're gonna discuss why being a stylish dresser will make your life easier. So let's start revving that in. Oh man, what the heck was that? Eesh. Second, we're gonna move. Then we're gonna move. Bear with me here when I take my. Bear with me here when I make my first point. If you're a teacher, pay. Already? My third point, the expense. My third point is the expense. At work, I'm often in a suit and find myself in lower income neighborhoods. It is there where I usually get stopped by people, usually tough looking gentlemen, saying that nice suit. That sounded so weird. I wrote this episode with the hopes that if anything, it makes you think slightly more, and I just got a bubble message. Can't read.